for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. So what's up? What's new in the world of Ascension pioneers? So I've been, as you know, guided to sort of withdraw and retreat myself from the whole world of YouTube and online communities and all of that nature. But I have actually been pretty busy. I've been quite busy myself. I've been actually doing advanced work on Patreon with my group called Ascension, and there's been a group of a few very beautiful individuals who was guided to this work, and it was quite a profound undertaking in this last few months. I believe it was just amazing. I've never felt more support than, when I started actually doing that work on Patreon, because YouTube was sort of like me speaking in a linear way, and you never know who's out there and who really wants to do the work. And on Patreon, there's a whole emanation of that divine symmetry when the pillar of light then moves into the circle of the sacred space. So there's this community work that's more advanced, because in truth, right, none of us has everything. In our collective joint mission, we're truly one. There is truly just one mission, and we're all aspects of it. We hold our unique point, which I call the focal point of specialization, and yet in togetherness, something that's shared, that comes out of that experience, is more profound than the work we do, as a solitary being. So what Spirit has recently been sharing also in our group, that there is devotion we know as individuals to truly be a devotee, and I was teaching about that for quite some time, and yet the devotion that comes through the group formation is yet something totally different. Something completely new. It's a different level of what we know as devotion that emanates, devotion that ebbs and flows. So in my community of this beautiful circle of light, where we focus on Ascension, Union, and as well Galactic information and guidance, what's been coming through recently was the opening of the Illumin portal, and I've shared about this in my group. I won't talk about any of the work we do there here on YouTube, because it's truly meant for people who understand this, who are initiated ones, who are also themselves in a way anointed ones. We did this beautiful sound channeling because I suddenly, with this new cosmic ray that came in just recently, I saw myself in this vision of creating cosmic sound, and I have been working with cosmic sound more since April. It really started to shift me in a whole new direction. So there was an activation that we did with the Light Brotherhood, with the White Brotherhood of Light. And it was actually right along the lines when I channeled the White Brotherhood light activation. It was about the way they flow through us and the way they guide us through the sacred flame, which is an overarching presence of our being. It's not telepathic, it's a higher form of connection, and we've been learning about that, and we've actually consciously stepped into that energy. But when the sound attunement came through, it was a whole new level. I didn't know quite what to expect. It was totally spontaneous. And then it felt like I'm starting to call out and sing their hymn, our hymn, because this is my family of light. This is my original homecoming, and I really felt so moved. And when I was done with the light activation and the cosmic sound attunement, I bursted into tears, and my body needed quite a while. I was processing this for the whole day for that to truly settle, because every cell was activated. It was that deep. So we do quite interesting things there. There is quite an interesting undertaking, because I never know where Spirit wants to guide us next. And this whole organic ascension, which I call the heart of the mother, and the mother flame ascension, which is very organic, it's wild, it's mystical. We don't know all aspects of it, and none of us has, we have all the answers. And yet together, we're sort of building these building blocks of the foundation that, serves for the artistry of this work that Divine Mother wants to birth through us. So in my own way, when I entered into these more advanced levels of work, I was called to share it within a particular group. And of course, commitment and devotion is required there. You know, I was just guided today to contemplate on this when I was walking here in nature. And Spirit was showing me, you know, how people often have these packages for TV subscription or cable or, you know, internet, something like that, right? You have to sign up for it. I remember when I moved here to the Alps, I had to get a new subscription if I wanted to have advanced internet. And since there wasn't quite a lot of providers available, I had to choose, you know, a package that best suited my needs and my upload needs, because I knew I'm going to be uploading a lot of videos with, you know, huge gigabyte size. And so once you've selected the package, you couldn't go and downgrade it. You could only just upgrade it or, you know, maybe cancel the subscription and that's it. But you couldn't downsize, you couldn't downgrade, because in a way, right, people commit to all sorts of things. And yet when it comes down to the path of spiritual devotion and commitment, people are still juggling so much. They don't know if they really want to pursue that, if they want to advance. Because, you know, in this reality, this earth is all about choice. It's all about conscious choice. There's so many movies of scientific origin, like sci-fi, metaphysical origin, that show us that it's all about the art of choice. That no one can choose anything for you. And when you don't choose yourself, someone else will choose for you. In terms of reality will unfold a certain way that maybe wasn't your highest preference, but since you didn't choose, that's what came out of it. So Spirit was reminding me that jugglers can never be devotees, because people like that always go from you know. And even in my work, people come and they want something and they might get interested, but they're never going to fully go into it because their heart just isn't with it. Our whole heart has to be with it, and we're either in it or not. So that's, you know, was beautiful to explore, because there was only a few people of the group that subscribed to Patreon that actually are full-heartedly in it, and we're doing this work together. And there was this message that it's not about how many of us, it's how much light quotient can we elevate together. So in this channeled activation with the White Brotherhood and the Sacred Flame and this white light attunement, it felt like home to me. I felt like coming home, and I had huge waves of divine remembrance. We were literally calling all souls back home. There was this calling of remember, right? You're worthy of this. Remember the sacred vow. We've taken this oath. And when I talk about it, I mean specifically in relation to volunteer souls, because these are the individuals I personally work with. You know, I'm available to everyone who wants to grow to more advanced levels of deep spirit attunement and other levels of reality and our galactic origin from the core pulse of life. However, you know, there's also this line of how far people are willing to come close into that communion space. So it really depends, you know, the level that individuals will be met at. But if you're like this and you're constantly wavering and you want a little bit of that, but you don't want to do the energy exchange, and, you know, someone will eventually make that choice for you. Life will still continue to unfold. However, we have to be the discerning ones who say, yes, this is where I want to go. And when we decide, we can't have any of those petty concerns like, oh, will I have enough money? Oh, how will I do this? How will I know this is the right thing? You know, today I was also thinking about this decision that I had to make, right? And it referred also to a specific individual. And when I tuned into the energy, Spirit said, well, they're a juggler, and then you're tuning into that energy, so you're feeling they're juggling, and then also you're juggling because you feel their energy, and then you also can make a choice, but you have to. But when you come into this state of complete inner sovereignty, there's no one above you. There is no right and wrong in terms of, you know, should I do this, should I not do this? This is what this highest state of being a self-governed being is. And this is just a starting point. It's from this point onward that we get to do more advanced work, right? So this, in a nutshell, is what I wanted to talk about first today. And let's go deeper now, okay? Because there's much more I want to share today, because I haven't been sharing these updates that I promised I'll still do a few here and there, just to bring a little bit of that, what's happening in the world of Ray Dawn. So even though I don't seem active, because, you know, now this world, our world is like, if you're not active online, if you don't have a Facebook page or an Instagram page or even your own online page, you almost like don't exist. So if you had once a channel, but then you no longer record or share much there, it feels like you're MIA, or how they call it, right? You're out of the game. And someone new or better would come along the way, and This is how people think, unfortunately, right? But here on my path of cosmic mastery, it's about going deeper. And for me, I know with my whole heart that this was totally guided, because it elevated my growth. It gave me the support. It gave me a structure of the group through which my light could flow through. It can operate through at greater levels, because when I increased my light quotient and when higher responsibilities came into being, this energy also required more of that anchoring space, that I can do that in the group. So I will present to you some of the things that are occurring, but I talk about all these things on Patreon. If you ever want to be a devotee there, if you ever want to join us, it's an amazing group. The community section is also quite active now. People are sharing their own inspirations and they're exchanging with each other, and I love that. There's also a sharing about the awakening journey or a personal ascension journey you have gone through or are going through that you can share about. It's a totally safe space, and it's such a space of love. And people who are also consciously engaging with it, they feel that love reverberating back, because it's not something you can observe others doing. It's you're either a participant or life will move you out. That's how the advanced ascension realm is. It's how things operate. You can't be a bystander, right? At the higher advanced levels of spiritual mastery, this is how it is. You're either in it or you're out of the game. You know, like I said, someone else comes and runs along and takes your spot. And we don't want that, right? Everyone wants to fully claim our spot. And I'm not only talking about people who resonate with my work, although that's probably why you're watching the video. I'm talking about in general, that which appeals to us, which feels there's a calling, there's an affinity to that resonance, but yet we don't do anything about it, either out of fears or a feeling of being unmotivated or feeling of undeservedness, something like that. Okay, so the second important message is that these upgrades actually led to a new unfolding. So it was interesting because, sorry, it's getting kind of chilly here. It was right after the light activation with the cosmic sound, with the White Brotherhood, that actually that same night, I had a star visitation, like physical contact. After quite a few years, I know they're always there. We don't always remember consciously in the dream, but I had these beings come to me, these light beings, this pulsating light beings. They're like light orbs that pulsate. They have a specific space frequency sound, and when it comes into my field, I recognize it. And instantly when it hit me, I was like, uh-oh, I know who it is, been there before. And they're back. It was like that, we're back. I was like, oh, wowza, because it's always intense when it happens. When you're right in the middle of it, it's nothing like believing in star beings. They're literally in your field, and it's overwhelming. We don't get to think about it, right? We're all about that starseed stuff and how glamorous it sounds, but it's not all glamorous. Certain aspects are very challenging and very intense, even if you have advanced understanding of creation and how it all works, and your advanced discernment levels are all, they're all intact, but still there's a human component here that in the New Age everyone seems to forget. It's this integration mastery, right? So it's the human aspect that's now learning how to move through these energies, to be upgraded, to be in neutral space, to be in that space of shared benevolence, right? So when these beings came, I knew instantly, it's going to be next level of upgrade, because it hasn't been going on for a few years now. They were with me in my awakening years, and then they sort of gradually left, and then they came back. And I share very profoundly each aspect of the contact that I had, which was a physical contact. It occurs in the astral plane body, and yet you feel it like it's there. It's literally happening in the physical. Well, beings who might also experience that, but they're not, let's say, aligned in resonance, or they couldn't take that profound nature of what's happening, they sort of get something like an anesthesia of sorts. It's not the same as, radically physical aspect of that. But it's, for example, how it was with my mother. Her attunement went like that, and mine was fully conscious. So within this visitation, there was a total movement of energy through my fields, and there was, they always scan you first, and then they upgrade your fields, because it's moving through your light body, but you experience it in your astral body. So these light codes go in you, and it feels a little unpleasant, right? Because it's almost like you go to a doctor and you feel a sensation, and it doesn't have to be painful. It's just unpleasant because of the way you don't know what happens next. You don't know what comes next, even though you know it's for your betterment and your advancement and your wellness, well-being. So the next portion of the activation was that I was actually moved through a stargate, and a part of me was like, I don't want to go there. I think I'm safe here, because I felt very much upwards pulling energy. I felt being pulled up, and a part of me didn't want to go, and that's that human part. It was something unknown from the level of what my body's experienced, right? Because again, we're talking about us as advanced light beings, and all volunteer souls are advanced beings. I'm not talking about star seeds per se, because there's star seeds who are not volunteer souls. People don't understand that. But not every being who's been to different regions of exploring the starry realms, right? They're just out of this world, otherworldly, right? Or other dimensions, is not necessarily here as invested in the whole planetary ascension plan. All volunteer souls are a natural part of the grand design. They're participating with the planetary ascension, not just their own personal ascension. And I've talked about this for, all my years on YouTube when this began to unfold, this whole volunteer souls journey. So they're souls who are working for their personal ascension and performing like a life synthesis. And then there's advanced beings who are here in sort of like star missions. And yet there's also star beings who are just here to explore the planet and report back to their own star beings or brothers, brethren, and so on. It does not necessarily mean that they're a part of this plan that's a collective plan for ascension of the planet. So those of you who are, you're always feeling this intense calling, longing to serve. It's just been purely benevolent without any agenda. And you've always been kind of immune to agendas. You always had a high level of discernment. You're like, you didn't want to go into things or groups that felt sort of like they're serving the self, even though they're a group and they might sound nice and say words that sound appealing. It's sort of like how they entice people in. And when I shared my Star Beings Visitations experience video, one of the group members actually commented that during their own years, when they were a little younger, a part of their training was also being met with these methods, right? And they actually shared something really interesting I feel called to share with all of you. I think I'm given the permission because it was shared with the group, is that there's a lot of enticement held. And when your discernment is not intact, and this is how New Age looks like as well, that there's methods of hypnotization and enticement and energetic frequency work that holds people in this trance state. And they think, oh, these are the heavenly realms or the realms of light, but it's false light. So the member shared how they recognized this, and they've seen, like in a vision, how people were all laying on these tables and they were given a mantra that they would think that's spiritual, but it was still just work being done on their bodies, and what was performed there wasn't truly benevolent. So as you know, there's a lot of hooks and cover-ups, and in all my years of talking about inception, I've revealed and disposed a lot of that. That's why I'm not a super highly wanted and demanding channel or YouTube, because what I share is very provocative and people don't want to hear about that, as you well know. So there's so much of this experiences, and in truth, every volunteer soul has to go through these training skills. And when you're being trained like this, you're often probably on this path. And my path has always been like a simulation. When I go and enter into the dream realms, I have like these simulation dreams when I have to perform tests and I have to get advanced in my skills, like in the movie called Divergent, right? It's very similar. And I'm learning how to complete a task, and this actually builds my skills. It's a skill building technique, and it's actually self-created. We create these dreams, our higher aspects create them for us, so that our human aspects, when we exist in these bodies, can master them. So when I talk about human level integration, it's the work that the human self must accept and acknowledge. It's never going to happen in the mind. So people who are always talking about being starseeds, and yet in their human bodies, they don't qualify for this work. It's not the same as when I talk about volunteer souls. This is these are highly trained individuals. And our training never ceases to exist. It's always a next upgrade. So when these light beings visited me, I recognize them to be of the Arcturian nature or descent. They are like cosmic light surgeons, but it's not the word surgery itself. It's like they perform these light upgrades. So in the meditation that followed after, because we did an angelic meditation, they confirmed that these were them, and that what they do is they accelerate the notion of something that was self-triggered anyway. They can't do anything for you. But since there's such a strong need and demand for what we do now as volunteer souls, they're sort of assisting the acceleration of that process to unfold. So in my level of work and understanding, that simply had to be done, because I advanced so much, and the whole of April I was outside having these mystical nature experiences, and in one of them I received a message that now I'm no longer a almost like primarily a divine messenger, as I was for these 9 years sitting here on YouTube sharing messages. They said I'm no longer that. I'm always going to be, because I'm a spirit guide, but primarily in terms of focalization of what I do, where you give your attention, you know, mostly primarily, that's no longer the case. And they said now I've moved onto the levels of profound alchemy of soul, working within these elemental realms. So since that visitation, in which I was actually taken through a stargate, because I literally seen stargate, and then I was pulled into another parallel reality. I don't know whether it was another planetary structure, it was a parallel nature, because it's all very much covered in mist when you wake up. But I still very vividly remember I was being shown places on our planet, on Earth. They were being highlighted on the map, and they were pulsating, and they were giving me locations which were, you know, they were being moved into my body. So they remain in your light body, when at the time of need, this would be triggered within you. You would be in conscious awareness or memory of that, and you would know exactly where to be, how to act, what to do. When it's not time, this just rests within you. And it's usually our physical reality that triggers that unlocks those codes. That is why it is so important to integrate with the human aspect, because cosmic union is the union of that which is this galactic penetration of information, this transfusion, right, of these higher energetic ways of being, methods, right, technologies of light, that they're moving into the human sphere. So how to operate in the human body, to be a vessel, to undergo and, you know, be ready to do this work. You can, if you haven't gotten the training, if the physical body is not at a certain frequency. So just before that contact, I actually read in the book from Ashwaya Dean, which I've shared with you about angelic realities, the survival handbook, that if there was an element of crises or something on our planet, that people who would achieve a certain light quotient acceleration or assimilation, that they would be able to have that acceleration, right, in their molecules, because this is literally what occurs when you go through the Stargate, that they could be literally lifted up. So one thing is to practice that, but then you return in the body, and the other is in the form of a scenario that wouldn't be truly benevolent, right, because everything is open, everything is now on the table with this planet, as you know. So what is happening on this earth as of now, when we talk about planetary ascension, is not as black as white as most people think of it to be. It's a lot of it is training, not just for what happens in this world. A lot of it is preparation for other realities. So we're always carrying what we learn here in terms of carrying out these jobs, assimilations elsewhere. So it is important, you know, you might meet people who say, oh, whatever I do or choose to do, then I always have the next life and then the next. The people who think that way are probably not volunteer souls, because when you're a volunteer soul, you wanna do the best in this life. Because you know how immersed and connected this life is with other realms? It's simultaneously happening. If you haven't watched, there's a super TV show called, what's it called? The OA. I've just shared it with my group. I just watched season 2. There's just 8 parts, I think, in each season. There's 2 seasons. It's just amazing. It covers a lot of information there, and jumping within realities and consciously doing it and what's behind this all. It's interesting, right? Although still, that mind-boggling process has to first occur within us. So anyway, moving from that training, since that experience with that physical contact, something has shifted within me, and I really truly feel that I was triggered. I was upgraded to now be able to do Stargate work. And you can't do Stargate work before you master the seal of so-called giver of life. So in my Divine Trinity of Life package for Organic Ascension, which I'm now doing, or Patreon, but then it will also be shared for everyone to purchase individually on my webpage, because it will be quite a profound course. And the also additional bonus part will be about anchoring cosmic rays. This is where I'm now. This is what I'm being trained for, because this is, again, huge undertaking, and to truly master this work in the body, because the body has to have a proper resonance and attunement to do this work. So this will be available. I'll share with you when it is. There will be a download link when it's available to purchase on my page, and there will be a section Ascension, and now you can find the new body course there. And something amazing that I've also channeled this weekend, it was all in the same alignment. I did everything in just one weekend. It was quite an acceleration. I did the 7 rays of creation and their purpose in Ascension video with spirit channeling, with messages for each of the rays, because a lot of people still don't understand their own focalization within the specific ray of Ascension. For instance, I have written on my page that I'm a primary focus white ray in this purpose, here and now on earth. That's my primary focus, or a point of focalization, how Spirit calls it, which means that's my main narrative of how my life purpose translates and what it translates into. So the white ray is synthesis, it's harmony, it's focus to physical ascension, it's vitality, it's life force mastery, it's the liberation of the goddess and the Kundalini Shakti work. That's the primary. But it's mostly about devotion to this work and the requirement for that to even occur in the physical sense. Without that, there is nothing. That's why the fourth ray is the synthesis ray. It is between all the other rays because it's connecting them. And it is the etheric links level of work. But simultaneously, those who are volunteer souls, we don't just have one ray of focus. We work on multiple realms and works or rays. So I operate also on the Galactic Blu-ray, which now I can utilize more in my Patreon work. We do a lot of Galactic channelings. We also do beloved readings, which are more advanced in terms of the beloved Illumin Union. It's not beloved in terms of just two people coming together. This is a possibility and a seed for Illumin Union to be on Earth, to be born here on Earth. So if you haven't listened yet, I have an audio about the Giver of Life on my Holy Spirit section of the page, which is a song that translated through me as the goddess, as the Giver of Life, as I went through that initiation. So when that initiation is passed in the physical sense, when the physical body is liberated on all those levels, because the path of descension wires all these levels upgrades into your physical structure of your body so that the DNA assimilation can take place. It's not just DNA activation, you have to have an assimilation. This will all be in the courses, right? An organic ascension, because organic ascension is mother's ascension. It is not the masculine ascension, which is linear and it goes through steps and stages. It is based on spiral. And in our whole history, we had the exchange or interplay of polarities of masculine and feminine ascensions, but then this all synthesizes in this organic ascension of cosmic union. So this will be in the courses and the work that is a part of this and understanding all of the principles, right? We've already went through this. It's the vessel principle, the life force principle, and the ascending principle, or several of them. So this will be in the works. And you can get this 7 Rays of Creation on my Ascension page on Serapina Light, which is a beautiful channeling. It's around 2 hours long, and it can help you to get the messages, because it's more based on not your personality traits, how you're like. This is like mundane level, trivial to me. It's about the advanced work. How do these people on these rays function? How do they connect to other rays? Their messages specifically directed for them. So if you feel something of that is calling to you, even if you're not on Patreon, you can separately get the course. It's just a minimum energy exchange there. So that's one thing. The other is the sound attunements we're now going to be doing on Patreon. I've shared with you already that I do now cosmic soul channelings for you as well. If that is somehow guided, this sound can activate the pulse, and it's almost like the structures, these light languages that then move through the purity of sound. And it could be different frequencies. You know, when I sing for myself, it's more of an Elven and Elohim, so these higher angelic frequencies, but some people would maybe get more native, or, you know, like different frequencies, and then you're tuning in to different facets of how sound moves through different lineages that go behind you, that are, you know, ancestral lineages that you belong to as well. So we have to walk through all of this, and this is quite a shamanic initiation. We've done that on Patreon as well, quite a lot about shape-shifting, and it was so much coming through. I have over 40 videos there already, I think, just this year. So yeah, you in a way use those to guide you into your higher octaves. It's kind of like the lineage we have to work through, and that lineage is the key. So our physical unlocking within the body is the key to higher, more advanced levels. So if you watch the OA, the TV show, towards the last part, the message is exactly about that. Because she jumps into a body of her alter self, and then her alter self is sort of suppressed when she jumps into it. But that which was suppressed or dormant, now she needs to unlock it. She needs to bring it back to the surface, right, from that which was submerged, because that holds the answers and the keys to what she needs to integrate now, so that the integration takes place. So that's kind of like our human self is not supposed to be overwritten with this galactic wave, especially if you're a volunteer soul. It's meant to do an upsurge, but then pull it back upwards. So that's why in the last year, I've talked about the importance of the illumined child within that's being birthed, to having a key, giving a key, performing this rite of passage for ascension. And it has to give the allowance. It has to say, yes, I'm ready, I'm willing. Otherwise, nothing will happen. You might live ascension in your mind, but that's quite a mental prison. Even though you think it's ascension, it's false light. It's a mental prison. But it's not literally organically happening. So the mother ascension is organic ascension. It either happens and you trigger it and you move along that journey or not. And it takes work, but it's not linear or work. It's just the work when you unlock the keys of understanding creation, how everything operates through the spiral. You understand a few basic principles of the vessel, which is your body, that orchestrate the allowance of the life force to come true, which is the second principle, and then that the ascending principles occur in a spiraling form, and what are their initiations behind them, and how this interplay of polarity is locked in our physical experience. So that's that. These are the offerings, and you can also get the White Brotherhood light activation if you're not on Patreon, separately on my download page, or just visit the light activations section as well. So sometimes that's where people start, you know, before going a little deeper. And just always ask yourself, where is my heart in this moment? Is my heart really guiding me towards this? Or is it just my mind and it's just like this? And deep inside, we always know, even when we think we don't, we do. We do. I have a lot of people who always say, well, I would so want to be a part of this, but they never take that first step because maybe they think, oh, but then I won't have enough this and that. You know, it's just something that prevents from us to even trying, you know. So if you feel that's for you, you're welcome, you're invited, you're going to be embraced with a huge wave of love, not just from me, but from fellow members. It's a beautiful space. Yeah. So primarily, these are the things I wanted to share with you today. All of this was talked about. We did quite a few number of goddess love sessions already. Amazing things about the way the mother orchestrates life through us came through. Beloved readings for Lumen Union, Galactic channelings I do as well. Now cosmic sound activations, and just so much. I'm multi-layered being. I can't help it. I'm multidimensional. I do all these things at once. That's why I'm not just of one ray. But the white ray for me is always where I get teary, where I tear up. It's my original focus. And even it's reflected in my personality, you know, the white. I'm so allergic to things that are impure and disharmonious in this world, and I want to bring purity and beauty to everything. So that's important for me also on a personal level, on a personal note. So if you want to know more, all the detail, all the informations are down below. I wish to meet you more personally as well. So if you want to become a member of our beautiful community on Patreon called Ascension, you're invited. And yeah, all in relation to beautiful upgrades happening. I just have to say that it's happening. This acceleration for all the volunteer souls is occurring, and my advancement has been intense. It's been like from here to there. And every time you start anew, it's not like you're fully in it. No, it's quite a work of getting that into the body. It's like you receive a new book in a library, and it's heavy, and it's like, whoa, you know. But it's an inner or an internal book and a level of mastery, and you have to go through all that to process it, to assimilate, to integrate, to synthesize, right? So this is where I am now, just like open a new Stargate, and they've said that now I can work with Stargate work and doing these visitations. So right after the dream, which was a visitation space, the meeting, and when I went through the Stargate, I was actually probably shown what I'm going to be doing next, right? Just going and locating the information and just absorbing it, and it's like moving it into the body, but without that sense of controlling it or needing to know what it means, because the highest form of evolution is truly not the analytical approach. Oh, I need to know everything, right? But it's that faith and knowing that the process in itself already knows what it's doing. The mother flame knows, that sacred flame knows. So that's what the higher beings and the light intelligence of our family of light, or the White Brotherhood that's behind these orchestrations of the galactic plan, they're speaking through us, not so much in these words we hear, this, you know, astral stuff, no, but the overarching presence, which is the communion or communication through our sacred flame. And that's why our inner flame has to be lit in order for them to reach us. So it's kind of more like an internal communication that occurs through the sacred heart. That's why it's called the heart ascension, and it's called the mother ascension. But it's all these levels: the crown, the heart, and the portal of the root. So when I talk about these three portals, is in terms of cosmic ascension, they are a part of what we call our ascended body. So for people who already completed the orchestration through the lesser density levels and have moved into the new template. So now our work here is, how do we navigate through the new template? How are we building new templates? Some of us are moving into the work with templates itself. We're going to write new templates. So it's quite an advancement. I don't know myself. I'm just learning to get along the way. The human body has the codes, it's almost like an automatic response. The inner child has the key. The body is not locked. There's no warden, right? There's no one above us. There is this inner guided divine authority. The inner child is that which allows. And there's a beautiful love play, love work, love child being born. So anyway, thank you for listening. And if you want to know more, I've shared all about it already. Find my work, links down below. I love you, as always, with so much love, wisdom, and power, and stay tuned for more. Bye. You know, recently one of my group members, community members, has said to me that they're surprised that there's actually not more devotees out there. You know, those beings who would do anything to get their physical ascension on track, and that understand that this takes work, right? And I said to them, you know, it sounds simple, but it's not that simple, because people still are where they are. So Spirit has given me this metaphor now with a mountain, right? So if you've never seen a mountain before, and once you do first physically, you're there and it mesmerizes you, it completely entices you, right? You first see it as an outside of you, and you want to go there and you want to be there, and maybe you would do anything to be there. But once you live next to the mountain, maybe like I do, and I see people who've lived there their entire lives, they don't see the mountain anymore. For them, life is just this mundane valley. They no longer appreciate the mountain. It's not how I am, but I see how most people are. And suddenly the mountain becomes almost like something that's there every day. It's no longer fascinating and no longer entices them or mesmerizes them. They no longer feel that gratitude. So it's just obvious, and they take it for granted. So it's also one of the reasons, not a primary reason, but also one of the reasons why I felt called to withdraw from YouTube, because my presence was no longer appreciated. It was just, you know, taken for granted. It just was always there. And it's how people usually are, you know, when they exist in these lesser states of evolution. And it's how I felt in my heart. And I wanted a place where I could be appreciated just as well. Like I appreciate life, like how I appreciate others. And I wanted that divine equality and reciprocity. And I wanted it not in numbers, but in feeling, to feel that equality and sharing and mutual reciprocity and giving and sharing, and, you know, not all just that giving, you know, and people are taking, but actually that feeling of joint communion. Recently, I also had a mesmerizing, beautiful experience of how sacred life can be with the pioneers who are keen on sacred voyaging, right? Who know these methods and have been trained in either shamanic teachings on different levels like such. And someone who's recently had a session with me actually shared how they were first called into my sacred space. So they said that in their instantaneous journeying experience, which was almost automatic for them, that's how they receive and feel visions at times, it was almost like a being of benevolence pushed them into my circle, and then they were, and all of a sudden they felt like they're reaching for my hand, and they grabbed my hand. So when they had a session with me, when they met me physically online, they felt it was that same hand. I couldn't believe it. And it's one of the signs, it's just one of these stories. I have them many times, but one of these stories, how everything is interwoven together, and how magical life is and can be if we take that first step. And sometimes it's a push and it doesn't matter. Even if it's a push, you still have to follow through, because it's still your free will. You might feel it as a push, but it's your highest aspect pushing you, because no other being would ever push you, as you know. No one would ever force you to be anywhere. No one of true benevolence. Usually it's the higher aspects of us that are pulling us, and they're calling us out. And sometimes we may stray off the path for a while, but then if we work on self-mastery, or even if we work with other master beings, they will usually guide us to the highest path for us, which would eventually be reaching that peak and then move on to the next one and the next, because you know that experience, and I do as a mountain climber, is when you're at the top of one peak, you want to see the other one and then another one, and it's a never-ending experience. And that's how volunteer souls we always feel. Our journey never ends. We just always want to traverse into new levels of being, and we want to, you know, bravely reach into the new unknown. And although it's deeply challenging, I'm not saying it isn't, because when the body is constantly receiving so many upgrades and so much wisdom of the galactic realm moving through us, the body has its own language too, and it wants to rest, and it needs more time for integration of that. And in those 9 years, I haven't really been giving much of that to myself. So now it's more of that for me as well, and it's much needed. All of the hyperactivity and hyper productivity is always on the menu for me, and it's always a challenge to rest and to get the body in that flow. So anyway, my beautiful ones, thank you for listening and to be part of this short transmission at the very end. I hope the mountain was as beautiful to watch as it is for me, although it is a bit cloudy here for now. Our skies, as you know, are being sprayed every day. They're being chemtrailed every single moment. And it's kind of like, as you know, it's a deep wave of oppression following after the other. And we are here doing all our work, but this higher level, this next work, as Spirit is sharing, cannot take place within each and every one of us just as individuals. You know, so speaking bluntly, it requires more than just our butts in it. It requires a collective gathering as well. This is where power can be harnessed at a greater level than it has been before. So enjoy the view and enjoy your life.